Dear subscribers, as you know, we shared many information for you, and we are studying very hard to find current news for you. However, I cannot use this channel for future. Please follow our new channel called as Daily News Report and watch our video to support us. Link in description. Also, you can reach the video we shared on Daily News Report by clicking on the top right button. We highly recommend watching, subscribing and sharing. We will continue to share some news on this channel, but we take precautions against some situations for future. Thank you for supporting us.
And what the central bank has been doing, it has been slowly manipulating the economy, the people, into thinking in their way. What does that mean? It means that gold is not money, paper is money, debt is good, get used to the new normal every single time, and if the dollar is devaluing, you should just expect this. We call it inflation. And this has been going on for many years. And during the 70s, once we came off the gold standard, everyone had to get used to another new normal, where all of a sudden, everything changed. The currency was no longer backed by gold. The petrodollar was put into place. And you saw credit pop up. Yes, there was credit before the 70s, but during the 70s and as we approached the 80s, credit became abundant for everyone. All of a sudden, everyone had a credit card. Even college students had a credit card. Because the central bankers, they knew something that no one else knew, that their system would break down over time. And as it broke down, they needed ways to convince the people that this is normal. We have one person working. Well, we have to think of a way where we can explain it off why we need two people working, why we need to bring someone else into the workforce. Then once we have two people working, we have to think of a way of why people need credit cards. And this continued on because what happened was the value of the dollar continually decreased over time. And we had to get used to this new normal. We had to get used to credit, charging things because we didn't have enough money to keep our lives continuing on. We need to have one or two or maybe even three jobs to continue on. This is normal. If you wanted to buy a car, well, you can't buy it in cash anymore. You're able to finance it. Then they had to extend the finance terms. Then they had to move into leasing because financing was too expensive because the value of the dollar continually decreased and cars were worth a lot more money. Homes were worth a lot more money. Everything was worth a lot more money. So they had to figure out a way where people can afford this. So we went from financing, they extended the terms on financing, we went into leasing with no money down, with a short lease, into 36 months, 48 months, 60 months, with money down, because the system that the central banks run is continually breaking down. Now if you go into a store, and let's say just a cell phone store, you'll see the products, they have this is what it is for cash, / this is what you can pay each month. This is because their system is continually breaking down and they're convincing the people that this is normal. This is not normal. This is a central bank illusion. And Trump, his administration, and everything that they're doing is transitioning us from this illusion, which will not last much longer. It will break down. It will fall apart. The only reason it's lasting is because the interest rates are in negative territory. It's because Central banks around the globe are pumping out stimulus. What, you didn't think Trump knew this? You didn't think he understood how the system worked? That the system's rigged? Of course he did. Now, if he pulled the plug as soon as he was elected, what would have happened to the central bank system? If he just announced, listen, it's an illusion, we're going to stop it right now, the whole thing would come tumbling down. Most of the manufacturing was moved out of this country. The trade deals were awful. We had regulations up the wazoo, taxes up the wazoo. It would have been a nightmare. Actually, this is what the deep state really wanted. They wanted the system to come down like this, credit to freeze up, shelves going bare, people losing jobs, just like in 2008, 2009, but on steroids. Trump, he knew he couldn't do this because the people would be out of work. They would lose their homes. They would lose their pensions. They would lose everything. Now, there were two outcomes, depending on who got elected. Well, if she got elected, they would have blamed it on war, and everyone would have had a sacrifice. Everyone would have lost a lot of jobs. Credit would freeze up. We would be rationed food and everything else because we'd be in war. Trump, he's creating the transition. Now, is it going to be smooth? He's going to snap his finger and we're going to move right into the new transitional economy? No. There's going to be bumps in the road, just like we saw back in the 70s. There were bumps in the road. Back then, there was high unemployment. Actually, in the UK, they had rolling blackouts. There were fuel lines here in the United States. Let's talk about investing. If anyone's thinking about getting into cryptocurrency IRAs, right now might be the time to jump in. Noble Bitcoin is saying that Bitcoin is up 30% so far this year. By comparison, the Dow Jones has actually lost about 10%. That's 40% more in your retirement fund in just 6 months. But it's about to get even better. And most leading commentators are saying that Bitcoin has only just started to climb. Crypto pioneer Adam Back thinks it's going to soar to 300,000 in the next 5 years. Even if it does just 10% of that, that's 30,000 a Bitcoin. That'll buy you a very happy retirement, everything you ever wanted. So give Noble Bitcoin a call and talk to their crypto expert about moving your IRA or 401k over to cryptos. You'll get a tax break and peace of mind for starters. So call Noble Gold at 877-646-5347 or click the link below. We're going to have some bumps in the road moving back to a sound money system because the central bankers, they've infiltrated everything. But the first stage is to build the economy back up, and that's what is happening right now. Trump is building the economy back up. Now, we're coming out of this pandemic, which was an artificial recession. It's not a real recession if you go by the central bank books. This was shut down by people. It's been turned back on by people. And Trump, he's been trying to manage this as we move forward. Now, of course, there's mayors and governors that are trying to keep the system shut down. They don't want anything to open up because then the economy will look better and better each day. They know this. But if you look at like the unemployment numbers, the people that are going for jobless claims, they continually are falling. They've fallen to 1.314 million. And for each week, it comes down. And this is not with the economy running at 100% capacity with all businesses open. This is still the economy living in a pandemic world where certain governors and mayors, they're keeping their states locked down or trying to relock them down. But moving forward, Trump, his administration, they're continuing with the transition. Today, he held a press conference with the Hispanic community, and he's signing an executive order to help Hispanic Americans, businesses, help them with school, to move them forward and to help. He's going to be doing this with each group. Why? Because when Trump came out and during a presser during the pandemic when they gave him the national emergency, the Defense Production Act, and he says he has all the power. He's not talking about the power to be a dictator. He's talking about the power of the economy. He has the ability to shape and mold this economy for the people, to take it away from the central bank establishment, because they gave him this power during the pandemic. They thought he was going to be using it to force governors and mayors to do certain things, to put troops on the ground and things like that. He's going to use it to bring back manufacturing, to deregulate, to cut taxes, to help the Hispanic American community, to help the Afro-American community, to help the Asian community, to help all the communities and build themselves up. Because once you have economic power, that is the true power. When you keep people dependent on the government with entitlement programs, with food stamps and welfare and things like that, you don't feel empowered. You feel dependent on someone else. And you're just sitting there waiting for that check. This is all now being changed. This is the transition. And what he's doing right now is he's letting the gold market move up. This is why we've been seeing the gold continually rise and rise. Yes, it's going to move down a little bit and then move back up. But eventually, as we're seeing, gold is continually moving up. And remember, it's not really the quantity of gold. It's the value of gold against the fiat currency. And we're not seeing the paper contracts like we saw back during Obama's term, where they continually were throwing paper contracts at the gold market, bringing it down. Because remember, they created the paper market to control the gold market so people wouldn't understand that, wow, gold is money, the Federal Reserve note is debt. That's the big difference. It's not fiat currency, it's fiat debt. It's a debt note. And what Trump is doing right now is he's building this transitionary economy. Now, we knew from the beginning, from this pandemic, he was going to push the idea of breaking up the supply chains in China. Now, remember, going back in time, they created the supply chains in China, all the manufacturing, created the exchanges, created the gold market, created everything, the Silk Road, because the central bankers were moving everything from the United States over to China. That was going to be the new superpower. After the war, what was going to happen? Well, the United States was going to be devastated. Other countries were going to be devastated. And China had all the manufacturing. Same thing that happened in World War II. Trump understands this. This is why he's been attacking China with trade, renegotiating all the other trade deals. What are they doing now? They're going after the supply chains in China. Are they saying, oh, because of the pandemic, we need to do this? No, they've taken it a step further. The White House now is warning corporations on supply chains from Chinese slave labor. So the U.S. Department of State, Treasury, Commerce, and Homeland Security issued an advisory on July 1st warning of products from the region which are made by forced labor by ethnic Uyghurs and others held by communist China in concentration camps, mostly in the communist country's western region. Now, the advisory said there are risks for businesses with supply chains links to entities complicit in forced labor and other human rights abuses in China, including companies involved in surveillance tools used by the Chinese government, products made with forced labor and other abuses in the region, and companies aiding construction of prison internment camps where more than 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities are in prison. And they're warning companies right now, you need to understand that we can't have these areas building our products. So we have to move our supply chains. The process has already started. First with the pandemic, where countries, the people, corporations were saying it's not a good idea to have our supply chains there. Now with the U.S. Department of State, Treasury, Commerce, and Homeland Security putting out this advisory, they're pushing to break up the supply chains in China. Why? Because the globalist model was to move everything into China, and now it is being broken up. Trump is not going to use the Defense Production Act right now. They're going to have companies do this on their own in the beginning. Now, they might move to India. Actually, Trump has set up some trade deals with India. They might move into Mexico, or they might move back into the United States. And I do believe that Trump is going to continue to deregulate and create tax incentives for these companies to move back to the United States, because his mission is to build the transitionary economy, to build it up so companies come back to the U.S., to build a strong base. Because once the U.S. is an economic powerhouse with manufacturing, the U.S. can then go after the central bank establishment. And this is exactly the goal. Remember, Dan Scavino right now has put out the video now twice, once in 2019 and the same video back in 2020, where they focused on the Federal Reserve note, highlighting Jackson, Federal Reserve note. And this was done on purpose. This is why Trump has Andrew Jackson hanging in his office. Because Jackson got rid of the central bank establishment. Once the central bank establishment is removed, people are going to see a completely different economy. An economy that they've never experienced before. An economy that's based on sound money, which will empower everyone. And this is something the central bank, the deep state, do not want. Because once people are empowered economically, they never want to go back. And these deep state central bank players, they can't convince them to go back. That's where the real power lies. And that is where we are headed.